How the hell is everybody doing? Man Cave Sports back with Hungry Like the Wolves after a hiatus the last couple of weeks due to the All-Star break, as well as some of our schedules, myself included. And we find the Timberwolves coming out of the All-Star break going 1-2 in the past week. A couple of losses to Houston and OKC, and perhaps, and statistically, the greatest comeback in Timberwolves history the other night against OKC in a game where they came back from 25 down, came back from 16 down with 4 minutes left, and Anthony Edwards on the bench. So, miraculous game that has been discussed throughout the NBA the last couple of days. Great game, highlighted by Anthony Edwards' block of SGA at the very end of the game. So, great win by the Timberwolves. Great performance by a couple of the players we'll talk about first, but coming out of the break here, I did see tonight that, and we'll talk about the injuries a little later, but things are looking up for the Wolves. I think they'll get some of the injured players back. But guys, and I'll start with Steve. Give us your take of what the Wolves have looked like coming out of the All-Star break.
Yeah, it's been a little bit interesting coming out of the All-Star break here. Rudy being down, with injury bug biting us here. We'll talk a little more about that. But yeah, the three ball definitely has left us. We've been, I think 2 games there, we shot like under 30%, 20 some percent. Ant was not, for as many points as he puts up, he wasn't very efficient like against Houston. So I definitely think that we've had some struggles offensively. Defensively, obviously, we've had struggles because, these teams are, throw out the overtime game, but the other two still, it was, we're giving up 100 points by the fourth quarter. So, defensively, we need to get some things tightened down. But yeah, I'm actually pretty encouraged after these 3 games because we could have won all three, honestly. We were right there in in all of them. Obviously, we won the one, but the other two, the Houston and the first OKC, we could have taken those as well. We didn't get blown out in any of them, and these are some of the tougher teams in the West, and we're right there with them, and that's so I think that's good. I think the other part of it that's good is that we've gotten to see extended run out of these rookies that because we had to. Jalen Clark, you've got TSJ, you've got Dillingham getting some more time. I think it's been fantastic to see those guys get some stuff. And I think Finch has had to get off his wallet a little bit here, let the boys play. And, they're showing out that they've got skill, they got talent. The tempo of the game is way different when those boys are in, than with the other guys. So I've been really encouraged to see we should have taken 2 out of the 3 at least, but that's all right. For a 1-2 stretch here, I'm encouraged.
Brett, I know you're our Chicago native of the Man Cave, so you are very familiar with TSJ, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. Uh,
Very.
but tell us what you think of the Wolves coming out of the All-Star break.
Yeah, really just kind of did up to a lot of what Steve just said. This team it's been the theme, and every time I speak on this podcast, it's pretty much the same take. It's up, it's down. They win 3, they lose 3. I think just from an optimistic standpoint, though, looking at what we saw with the OKC series, I guess not really a series, but you know what I mean. Taking 2 out of 3 from those guys, and really the one that we lost at home, we could have won that game. So I think that see if they see us coming in the playoffs, I cannot imagine that there's not a little bit of dread there. If we have everything clicking the way that we can up to our potential. I think really the only thing that I'm 1000% certain of right now is that I really like the bones, no pun intended, of this team's like kind of structure moving forward, obviously because of the 3 rookies. But I mean, coming off of the cat trade, the big theme was flexibility, right? Well, the beautiful thing about having 3 rookies stepping in here off of injuries, but these guys have really shown that they can be rotational, right? You got TSJ, you got Clark, you got Rob Dillingham. Those guys are getting their feet wet right now. And I think the beauty of that is going into next year, you're going to have 3 really inexpensive rotational pieces. And then I'll add to that, I'll add DDV, Dante DiVincenzo, getting about 10, 11 million next year. So look at that. You got 4 guys who will probably be in the rotation for probably the next 2 years, at least next year for sure. 4 guys that are going to get rotational minutes for under $20 million combined. So good Lord. I mean, if the goal was flexibility and shipping Cat out, moving into the next nucleus, being really, I think we're kind of seeing that the big three in the future is going to be Ant, Nas, Jaden. I believe they will get Nas paid one way or another, but my God, that flexibility, you're going to have 8 guys locked up. And that are going to be rotational pieces. And then, we'll see what happens with, I don't want to get into off-season stuff now. I guess what I'm really trying to say is I'm really optimistic about the Minnesota Timberwolves moving forward in a way that I haven't been during this regular season, now that I'm kind of seeing the vision come to life. So that's what I've got on my optimistic take in recent Timberwolves developments. So toss it back to you guys.
Be naughty.
Well, the one thing I really dig, I mean, I took a lot from Mr. Steve and BM out there in Chicagoland, but I like the grittiness coming out of it. TSJ, he's like the prototypical gritty player. And so is Jalen Clark, 2-time Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. I just like how they're coming out gritty. And one thing that everybody hates is that Diller's not getting the playing time that he needs. I have to have faith that Finchie is just so specific on what his defensive plan is that no matter the effort on both ends of the court, he's not doing it right. So I just got to trust in the head coach on that. But and Nas, the whole thing I've been seeing a lot lately is that Nas going to San Antonio or this. No, dude, that's why we got rid of Cat, and I feel pretty good about it. And hey, let's play. Michael.
Yeah, I'm encouraged by what I've seen. Obviously, the win the other night was huge.
Yeah.
And I like how you guys pointed out. I mean, think about this. The teams that are ahead of us in the standings, and we'll see them play the Lakers tomorrow, but Denver, I mean, we knocked them off the throne last year in a grueling 7-game series. OKC, we beat 2 out of 3.
They don't want to see us.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. There's Houston, even though, we've went back and forth with them this year. I doubt that any of these teams want to see us. I think the main objective for the next 25 games or 24, whatever it is to get a top 6 seed. Avoid the play-in and all the chaos that can come with that because you're down to a make or break situation. I think if the Wolves can close out the season in fashion, I think they're a half game out right behind the Clippers, who, if I'm not mistaken, play tonight. In fact, yes, they're playing right now against the Bulls. You get one of those top 6 seeds, anything can happen. Remember, the Mavericks made the conference finals last year in the 5 seed, so they didn't have home court for any of the playoff stretch. So, but we'll move along to the rookies, and we've kind of hit on it a little bit up to this point. But I think the big thing that I took out of the OKC game, obviously, Ant didn't have his best game. He was doing other things. His shot wasn't falling, but he was out with, I believe, a calf injury. He came back to play in the overtime, but when the Wolves made that 16-0 run to tie the game and subsequently take it to overtime and win, they were led by those 3 rookies, and particularly TSJ just dominated in the fourth quarter. Had the huge rebound, too, after Ant had the block in overtime. So just want to talk about your guys' your view of the rookies. I'll say this. We've been talking about Dillingham all season. He's, it's been kind of up and down a little bit with him, but we see flashes of his playmaking. I love his quickness. Jalen Clark, I'll tell you what, because we knew he had a defensive pedigree from his college days. The guy sat around for basically 15 months, didn't play any ball because of his Achilles. I have been thoroughly impressed with his shooting ability, his playmaking ability. He can shoot the 3. I did not foresee him coming out and being the offensive juggernaut that he has been the last month. And then TSJ, the more minutes they give him, the more I like the guy. I mean, let's be honest. As much as I love Ant likes to settle for 3s, but TSJ is aggressive.
Downhill.
He plays downhill. He is not scared of contact. He can shoot the 3. His defense is solid. I love from what I'm seeing from TSJ the last couple of
boards too.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. So, Steve, your take on our 3 rookies and their play in the month of February.
This is, going back into December when we'd see some of these rookies get in there Dillingham, TSJ, you'd see him get in and you'd see the tempo and the offense speed up, right? And it was forcing our offense to move faster. And now I think Finch is finally, because of injuries and things, he's, like I said, he's been forced to play these kids and he's seeing the results. TSJ, like you said, he's downhill. He's a bull in a china shop. He gets that ball, he's gone. Dillingham, he gets the ball, he's gone, right? They're just going. Jalen Clark, not only he locked down SGA, a potential MVP for this season, right? He can lock down that guy and go stride for stride for him, one of the best scorers in the NBA this season. Clark can handle him. Oh, and by the way, he's got a 3-ball, right? I think that, honestly, when Clark got hurt, when the last game we lost to OKC, I think that was a big reason that, because Ant really didn't have it. If there's many points as Ant gets, I don't think he really had it. And Clark was really locking SGA up pretty good. He had some foul trouble, but still, he stuck with it. And when he went out, when he hit his head and whatnot, I think that changed a bit of the game. So I think the rookies getting more run is excellent. I think it speeds up the pace of the game, especially when your bigs are out. When you've got to run Ingles and Luka extended minutes because you don't have height. What else are you going to do? Run the other team off the court. And these little guys like to, they can run all day. Dillingham, I think sometimes we got too short of a leash. For some reason, Finch just likes to beat on this kid. I don't know what happens in practice. Maybe he's telling this kid the same things all the time. He doesn't listen. And, I don't know. I've had that when we've been coaching our team as well, where it's like, geez, can you, focus, and I don't know how many times I've hollered that out, but maybe it's a situation like that. But I think sometimes that leash is a little too short with Dillingham, and he's going to have to lengthen it. Otherwise, you got a fantastic talent there that you can ruin because you're going to yank his confidence right out from underneath him. So I'd say let him run. Let him. DiVincenzo should be coming back. Let these kids run with DiVincenzo. Who can be a calming force. Conley, we're seeing that. This is the last run for him, and we're seeing why. So I think you give DiVincenzo some more run. Give Dillingham and Conley some split time, and let them figure it out. But keep those rookies in there. Keep accelerating. Shorten the leash on the old dudes, right? Sticky Fingers comes back. He starts holding that ball for 8-9 seconds, yank him and throw in TSJ. Be like, this is how you play basketball.
Our hidden run is over then once Sticky Fingers comes back. You notice there's something with those two, whether it's spacing or they just don't play alike. I always feel that's why we're getting this Jaden outburst right now. It's my thoughts.
Yeah, Nas, look at Nas. Nas has become amazing. I don't want to stray too far, but Sticky Fingers being out is going to get Nas a huge freaking payday this year, and we're going to pay him.
Absolutely. I agree. Brett?
Yeah, just a hard emphasis on the last statement Steve just made. I believe that, like the gospel in my household, that we will pay Nas. But yes, that's not what this topic is about. So I will not stick on that too long. I think really kind of what I'm taking away is, like we mentioned with Dillingham, at least right now, Finch still kind of sees him as a project, but I've seen enough to know that I like his potential a lot. What I'm taking away for the 2025 season, coming down the stretch and moving into the playoffs, is what we saw the end of the OKC game. And I always try not to be a prisoner of the moment, but what we saw looked like something that was pretty repeatable with the personnel that we have. And you have to have the personnel to be able to do it. Not any team can just be like, oh, look what the Wolves did. Jalen Clark, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Jade McDaniels. Any two of those three on the court at the same time, and you just hound the shit out of Shea, and you force the ball out of his hands. Why can't we do that for 7 games? We can. We have the personnel to do it now with Jalen emerging as a real rotational guy. And I think that him converting to a regular NBA contract is kind of, the writing is on the wall there. Why do you do that? You do that so that he's going to be playoff eligible. He's not a two-way anymore, so he can play in the playoffs. It's really the only reason to get that done right now. So that tells me that he's going to be a factor in the playoffs. And I think that defensive scheme, on whether it's Shea, whether it's Ja Morant, whether it's Luka, you can stick Nickeil and Jalen, or Jaden and Nickeil, or any two of those three guys onto the top guards in the West, and we can make their lives hell for a 7-game series. And I think that's the most beautiful thing that's come out of this. I do hope to see TSJ get some more run. I know that rotations are going to shrink come playoff time, so it's tough to see where he would fit in. But I mean, I would love to see a 10-man rotation in the playoffs. That's probably wishful thinking, considering the way that Finch has kind of rolled in the past. But no, I think Jalen Clark will definitely be on the court for at least 15, 20 minutes a night in the playoffs. And I think that's going to pay dividends against some of the foes that you're going to run into in the West in the backcourt. So that's really the theme of the rookie emergences that I'm taking away and I'm really sticking with is looking ahead to April and the things that we can do to kind of rehash that feared defense that we have. And before I toss it back, another thing that does is you stick Nikhil and Jalen up top in the perimeter. Then you can kind of have Jaden fall back as the low man and protect the rim. And I think that's what he's a lot better at doing. And I think that he's found a lot of success there. He's been getting a lot of boards. So he's a little more free to do that with the existence of Jalen. So just a lot of really good things coming out of the renaissance of Jalen Clark. So man, that's what I got. Toss it back to the cave.
All right, be naughty.
Yeah, the rookies. I'm a huge Diller guy. I love him. The guy that I thought was the best guy in that draft for us to get. But I gotta trust in the defensive. I hate to be Joel Embiid. Trust the process. But there's something with Finchy. If you miss assignments, yeah, I think that's why he's being punished. It's not that he thinks Diller's an asshole or he don't like his mom. I think the one guy that would have played right away if he was healthy would have been TSJ, just because of he's like the worker bee. He's in there and it's working. And now we got Jalen, and I'm gonna go back to Mr. B from Chicago. And say, hey, man, there's a lot of things we can do later in this, and injuries are always a problem. But I mean, I think there was a reason why Finchy was being Tom Thibodeau and like running an 8-man, 7-man bench there for a while. I think there's like something with it, but I'm not there. But who knows? But it does look bright, Mr. Brett. I agree with you, Michael.
You know, something that I find interesting, especially since Jules has been out. Now, let's be honest, he hasn't lived up to expectations. I don't think he's had a bad season per se. I just don't know how well he's gelled with this. But I've noticed the increase in rebounding from both Nas and Jaden significantly, and with the increased playing time of these rookies and how well they've performed, I'm starting to think to myself, I know a lot of it will depend upon Randall going into his player option, which I believe is for 30 million, which I believe he will. I think he will.
31.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he will take that player option, but with us above the second apron and having to pay especially Nas and Nikhil, I mean, is there the potential that they trade Jules in the offseason for draft picks, et cetera, because they feel they have.
I'd count on it. I'd count on that.
And I think a lot will be determined with how Randall plays when he comes back, and I think he's close. They already ruled him and Rudy out for tomorrow, but I'm starting to feel a little bit better about that trade because you guys pointed out the flexibility it opens up from a payroll perspective. But at this juncture, I'll be honest with you, and we've berated him all season to a certain extent. He's a Timberwolves, so I'll root for him, but I'm kind of feeling like the future, if Jules isn't in it and we can get something for him, I'm all for it, especially if that means keeping Nas and Nikhil. I think long term, and I was looking at something today. You think about that. I think Nas is 25, Nikhil's 26, Jane's like 23, 24, Ant's 23. I mean, that nucleus, TSJ is like an old man of the group. I think he's 24. But I mean, you look at that young nucleus that they have, and if they can keep that together, I think they have something special. And you got to figure
defense.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So
wins championships, bro.
Anyways, I'm feeling much better about their future. And I mean, I think we had expectations possibly for TSJ. I think we all had high hopes for Dillingham. I don't think any of us saw Jalen Clark coming out and doing what he's doing. But rookies look great. Now, in addition to getting Jalen Clark a 2-year contract, guaranteed contract at the league minimum, which is, to me right now, I haven't seen him play last month, is a bargain. We did pick up Bones Hyland today. And Bones Hyland is a name that has floated around this part for years since Tim Conley became the GM. because he drafted him. I know B Naughty has been salivating over the prospect of Bones Hyland for years, and he's jumped around from team to team, maybe not lived up to the potential he showed when he was with the Nuggets, but as of today, he's a Timberwolf. I believe it's a two-way contract, so he's not guaranteed anything beyond. I think the two ways are. I mean, he's not guaranteed playoffs. I think they would have to convert him for him to be playoff eligible, but they're going to give him the 20-some game run. And with Mike Conley's injuries as of late, I think it's low risk, potential high reward. Steve, what do you think of Bones Hyland? I know his stock isn't what it was a couple years ago, but he's still a very interesting name that gets floated around the league, especially over the last few years.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think I could see him being like third line type of guy, maybe competing, for backup minutes potentially as Conley goes out the door. I could see them keeping him around for a while just to see what he's got in the tank. Let him go back and forth with the G League a little bit and bouncing down to Iowa and stuff and just see what he's got, kick the tires on him a little bit and then see what he can come in and do. I'm wondering if this means that we end up with a casualty of somebody like Mr. Minot, needing to get moved. But Minot, he can't find the court with like you said, he can't find the court with a searchlight right now. He just with TSJ and Jalen Clark and everybody else rolling that the way they are, you can't make the excuse to pull them off to put Minot on. Luka, when Luka Garza's getting more minutes than you, I think there's some question there, but I think Bones is interesting. I think bring him in, see what he can do. We'll bounce him around back and forth with Iowa, and we'll see what happens. I'm going to reserve judgment a little bit until I can see him prove it a little bit. At least tear it up in Iowa, and then we'll bring you up and see what you got. That's my take.
Bones, Mr. Brett.
Yeah, 1,000% agree with Steve. I think it's an Iowa move. I think it's a why not move, and there's utterly no risk to it. It's a two-way. I completely agree. I think like one of my big concerns is, and I've always prefaced by saying one of my favorite Timberwolves of all time, Mike Conley. That age is getting there. One of my strongest takes is that I think when DDV comes back, I've wanted to see Mike in kind of a PG3 role, point guard 3, and kind of like what Monte Morris was doing for us last year, like 15 minutes a night in situational stabilizing moments. You don't want to depend on him too much. But yeah, I guess I mean the Bones thing is kind of an insurance policy on that front. I guess he'll kind of take on the role that Deshaun Nix had. He'll get in some garbage time. But I think looking ahead to next year, yeah, it might get interesting because I think I 1,000% think that Josh Minot is gone next year. I think that is a result of the TSJ emergence. I don't see room for Josh Minot to grow on this team. I mean, he's in his third or fourth year, and TSJ has kind of eclipsed him as a rookie and taken over whatever developmental trajectory he might have been on. I think as I mentioned in a couple of meetings ago, I'm ready to cut bait with Luka Garza. So I think we got some room on these two ways and some Iowa action. I also like with the emergence of these rookies, I don't know that we have room to use that Detroit draft pick. So I think that's probably trade bait this offseason. So I think there might be some room for Bones Hyland in the future to maybe sign a vet minimum this summer and maybe we'll see what we can do with him. So maybe it won't just be the 20-game run. So I don't think we'll see much from him this year outside of Iowa. Maybe some garbage time. If things get weird with Connolly, maybe you'll see him come in there to kind of fill the void with Finch's trust in Rob Dillingham not quite being 100% yet. So,
or perhaps an injury because we've seen both Conley and Dillingham miss a few games due to injuries this year. So
exactly, yeah. So I think barring an injury, I don't see him being a factor. But yeah, maybe this summer, maybe we clear some of the dead weight on the younger side with Garza, Minot. Deshaun Nix is already gone, so yeah, maybe there's some room for him. We'll see. But can't hurt. It's a flyer. That's low risk. See what you guys think.
Brian, I know you were salivating to get Bones. What do you think his role is going to be for I don't know.
Well,
On the key,
well,
remember it's a two-way contract, so there's not a whole
I
lot
know,
of.
but they had to do that to ensure that that dude wasn't a restricted free agent next year. That was the obvious move. There's obvious other moves that can be made to change that. Usually, per the usual, I disagree with Mr. Steve. Sometimes he's just too rigid in his thinking, and I hate it when BM goes against me too. But I disagree. I disagree wholeheartedly. I don't want to hear this Iowa, Des Moines, Minneapolis bullshit. That guy's going to be on the team, and he's going to play. And that's my thoughts on it. I mean, instant offense like James Hollywood Robinson, Anthony Peeler going against the Timberwolves, Vic Johnson. TC drafted him, and he's wanted him for a reason. You both are wrong, Michael.
All right, we want to welcome a staple of Hungry Like the Wolves, a latecomer tonight, but better late than never, Mr.
Razor.
What's up? What's going on? That was a perfect time to come in when B Naughty was going off. I loved it.
Yeah. So far we've covered the post All-Star break, couple of interesting games, a great win the other night against OKC. Talked about the three.
Sounded like we were talking about the.
Yes. So we will segue you in. Talked about the rookies, the big three rookies who have been playing great as of late. The flexibility it's going to give the roster in the offseason, but we were just discussing, and everybody had their take, the Bones Hyland move today with Jalen Clark getting a secured contract for the rest of this season and next year. So give us your take on Bones.
Well, first off, I know you guys touched on this, but I'm just so excited for Jalen Clark to see that he got this promotion. He's so well deserving of it. I've been just so taken aback at how he's arguably their best on-ball defender already. Maybe I'm crazy for saying that, but he has stood up to Devin Booker, stood up to Malik Monk, Bradley Beal, SGA, and he's shown a surprisingly good offensive game as well. His three-point shot looks pretty good. He even had that like drive to the left and a little float action. He's a really good cutter. And I think that his ability to guard so well on the ball has allowed Jaden McDaniels to kind of be more of a freelancer on defense, but also maybe that might be a part of why he's really taken off offensively lately is that he doesn't have to focus so much on guarding the other team's best wing player all game long. A lot of it is opportunity as well, but Bones Hyland, he's been a Wolves killer over the years, if I remember correctly. When he's gotten his chances, it seems like against the Wolves, he just lights them up. I am concerned about the defense and all of that, but to get him a player of his ilk, a player of his talent on a two-way deal, that's incredible. I mean, I don't have any expectations. I haven't really gotten a chance to process it all, but I mean, you're getting a guy that has played for some good teams already in his career, and he's still young, and we know that Conley's a fan, if I remember correctly.
He drafted him.
Yeah, he drafted him, and I think there was talk even last year or the year before that they were going to try to acquire him.
Yeah.
So, to get him on a two-way deal, I think is massive, and I wouldn't be surprised if we do see him getting some minutes. So I think it's a really good day, in the world of the Timberwolves. So.
All right.
Same time, we did get him on a two-way contract. So let's, Naughty, you got the car sitting there behind you. Why don't you pump the brakes just a minute there? Okay, just pump the brakes a little. We were able to land this guy on a two-way contract. So it's not like I mean, how many teams are in the NBA? We picked him up for, a box of Cracker Jacks and a half-eaten stadium hot dog here on a two-way contract. So
playing the whole way, the whole time.
Can I ask a question now, guys?
That's Conley playing 4D chess. Go ahead, Ramon.
Yeah. So does anybody know why he kind of just fell out of favor in Denver? Because he looked like he was a big part of their
They
future.
traded him to the Clippers for what's his name?
Yeah, but if I'm not mistaken, he's a bit of a locker room malcontent.
Okay.
Is
Okay.
that not?
That was what I was wondering
some
about.
of his baggage?
We'll see.
Yeah, well studied on him, but I've kind of heard the same thing.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's always been there's been a question of maturity, his attitude, and I'm sure like any young player who's got some offensive talent. I know he's only, if I'm not mistaken, he's like a career 40% shooter, but like he's
Oh,
40% from downtown too, which is pretty decent. So
Yeah,
he's been known to be a bit of a defensive liability, but they kind
yeah,
of said the same about Dillingham as well coming in his rookie year. So and it remains to be seen. But either way, I mean, to me, it's so low risk. I like
yeah.
the I like the move. So we'll see what happens. And like we touched on earlier, I think before you got on, Ramon, Conley and Dillingham and both missed games due to injury this year. So I mean, at the very least, it's some depth at a position they needed at. So
For sure.
Is it kind of another feather in Tim Connolly's hat though that he did not trade for Bones Hyland 2 years ago, and I think that was kind of like, hey, maybe like Bones Hyland is the guy that we bring in here. And then I think if I'm not mistaken, I'll have to fact check myself, but I think that was when we got Mike Conley and Nah. So
correct.
we had another
2 years ago,
well-made decision from Mr. Tim Connolly, if I'm remembering everything correctly.
yeah, I think 2 years ago there was the hope that when we moved D'Lo that Bones and I don't think there ever would have been a possibility just because of their salaries for like a straight up trade without other partners or other players. But I think the consensus was 2 years ago at the trade deadline, get Bones Highland. Obviously, I think the organization and let's be honest, the fan base was ready to move on from D'Lo. I think that trade was to this day great. I mean, we got Conley and Nikhil out of it, so and D'Lo's back in Brooklyn. I mean, I'm hoping he's not going to continue to make that circle around and join us for a second time like he did with the Lakers and the Nets. But I digress. On to the next and last topic. We're going to talk injuries. We're post All-Star break, unfortunately, and I was at the game where they lost to a beaten up Bucks team. And I'll never forget Rudy grabbing his back as he was sitting there at the free throw line. He wasn't shooting the free throws, but he was grabbing his back. And I told my son Mitchell, I'm like, something's wrong with Rudy's back. Look at him. And he hasn't played since that game. But Rudy's got the back spasm. But I guess he was okay over the break, but when he came back, he tweaked it. Obviously, Jules has been out for what, close to a month. DiVincenzo as well. I saw the report today. They have still ruled Rudy and Julius out tomorrow. However, DiVincenzo is now questionable for the Lakers game tomorrow night, which, let's be honest, it's a huge game. The Lakers have been playing pretty well even prior to the Luka trade. They look like he's starting to fit in there, and him and LeBron and a couple of the other players are starting to gel. So I think tomorrow night's game is going to be very interesting. But I'll switch up the order a little bit too because the screens have changed. At least my view has since Razor got on. But Brett, I'll start with you. What do you think about the injuries? What do you think about with the emergence of some of these other players like Clark, TSJ, etc.? And Nas as a starter?
Yeah.
Going to look like when obviously Rudy's going to come back in and start at center. I don't think there's any question about that. But what did the minutes and what did the starting rotation look like now? Because when DiVincenzo went out as well, he was in the starting lineup and we were pulling Conley off the bench. I mean, what does that mean over the next week or two as these guys start to work their way back onto the court?
Yeah. So, I mean, as I kind of mentioned earlier, one of my hopes when everything does clear up is that Mike Conley becomes PG3. Maybe Dante DiVincenzo starts again. Maybe some combination of like Nah DiVincenzo, and then like Rob Dillingham getting in there, and then like 15 minutes of Conley. I actually do think that might happen because we had 14 minutes of Conley in that OKC game, and we had like 28 minutes of Jay Clark. I think we had more Dillingham than Conley, so I think that might actually happen. I think Finchy might have seen the light on that front. Um, Second hope, unsurprising to everybody here, is that Naz Reid should be the starting four moving forward. And I don't really care if that pisses Julius Randle off. I think ideally, from a basketball standpoint, it would be so cool to have Julius Randle as your Kyle Anderson on steroids coming in off the bench, doing that, kind of that big, like, jerky playmaker that kind of throws everything off. Him coming off the bench would be so cool. I would love it so much. I don't know if he'll do it. And moreover than that, I don't know if Finch has this weird soft spot for Julius Randle that can't get over. I think that Finch's bosses, though, at some point may step in and say, "Hey, bro, like the plan is not Julius Randle moving forward." So if you're going to gamble on Julius stepping back in over what we've seen from Nas the last handful of weeks, I mean, the guy looks like a superstar. at not superstar, but you know what I mean. Like he looks fucking irreplaceable at the 4. So I don't know. That's going to be the interesting saga. I don't have the answer. I don't think any of us have the answers. I think that's the biggest question cloud in Timberwolves land is what happens between Julius and Nas when Julius comes back. And I think most of us would like to see Nas keep that role. And then I think Rudy's going to step right back in and start at center. So I mean, there's really no mystery there. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I wish I had some more confident takes, but we're gonna have to see.
Oh no, it's good. It brings up an interesting question because we know Julius has the player option. Now, if he declines his player option, is he a restricted or an unrestricted free agent?
Unrestricted.
Unrestricted.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean that's probably the not the fear, but that's the dilemma that Finch and Conley are put into if they.
I think he's gone, dude. Regardless,
the idea of him opting out though, because then you can definitely sign Nas.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But then you basically gave. I'm not going to say you gave Cat away, but you gave him away for DiVincenzo and a draft pick, but with cap space as well. So I mean, you can look at it from it's semantics at this point. Anyways, let's move on from that. We'll have plenty to talk about at the end of the year and then the off season. But I'm going to go to you, Ramon. Talk about the injuries, the rotation, what the next couple of weeks are going to look like as Rudy and DiVincenzo and Randall work their way back into the rotation.
Well, I think pretty much all season we were lobbying, the fan base was lobbying to get some of these young guys in the game. And so these injuries have allowed for that to happen. And, outside of Josh Minott, they've all shown out. Sorry, Josh Minott, I was really pulling for you. It's interesting to see how he was that ninth man, right? Who was getting that 5-6 minutes. And now when they actually needed him, when there was really opportunity, he's an afterthought. And it makes me kind of sad for him, but it's so exciting to see TSJ, Jalen Clark, Rob Dillingham come through. And I'm not saying he's a major part of the future, but Garza had some really, really, really rough games, and he's played a little bit better and done the best he can. So with injury comes opportunity. So it's been really nice to see these guys develop. I agree with Brett that, I think Dante's got to start. Maybe it'll take a couple games, though. Maybe bring him off the bench at first, but I think he's got to start. And I think you got to keep Nas in the starting lineup as well. The floor just seems spaced so much better now. And Edwards, not saying this is the only reason, but Edwards is getting to the free throw line at seemingly a much higher clip. And I think a lot of that could be to do with the fact that the floor is spaced and there's just a lot of room to work for everybody. And then Jaden McDaniels too. I mean, I was crediting Jalen Clark's emergence on defense as to helping him develop more on offense, but part of it is because those shots are there and he's taken it and run with it. And that pull-up shot of his, that pull-up mid-range shot is damn near automatic right now. So I'm with Brett. Got to start Dante, and I think you got to start Nas. And Randall seems like he's not as much of he looks pretty happy on the bench right now, and so he better accept it. And he's been out for so long that it would be really bad form if he became a problem about coming off the bench.
Well, like your guys' takes, very interesting stuff to see develop over the next 2 months prior to playoffs. Steve.
Yeah, I think the injury bug has definitely forced Finch to I don't know, he had a big bowl of super colon blow or something to clear out that constipation when it came to the bench, but something cleared him out because now it's like, yeah, you can't play slow, you can't play sticky fingered, you can't do that because we're not good enough to play that way. We have to play fast. We have to run people off the court and get them moving and take the pressure off Ant. When the only guy driving downhill is Ant, well, we've seen what they do. They'll throw 3 guys at him because they know nobody else is doing anything. You've got Nas stuck in a corner, Jaden stuck in a corner. It doesn't work. So coming back with these injuries, I think, you get DiVincenzo work back in, don't risk it. You don't have to right now, right? You don't have to risk re-injuring that toe. We want him for the playoff run. Work him in nice and slow, get him back healthy, get his legs back underneath him. Let these kids run for a while. You're in the 7th spot. That's fine. You keep going back and forth. 1-2, 1 win here, 2 wins there. 1 loss here, 2 losses there. You keep staying right here. The other thing that's happening right now that we got to watch out for, at some point in time, Ant's legs aren't going to be bulletproof. The ankle rolls that we've seen him take last season, the injuries he's been taking on his lower legs this year. He's got a calf strain. We've all seen this happen before where people have got calf strains. Next thing you know, something big happens and they're down for 2 months. Right? We can't afford that. We can't overcome Ant being gone for a long stretch of period of time. We're not there yet. So I'd say let these young guys run, get DiVincenzo work back in. And then you don't have to rely on Ant to be going downhill and taking these beatings all the time. He's shooting threes like crazy and he's making them. He's insane at the 3-ball. Let him do it. Let him pick and choose more when he wants to drive the lane, when he wants to shoot. He doesn't have to because you got Clark, Dillingham, and TSJ that are more than willing to be bold in China shop and run straight down that floor. You don't have to worry about Ant. Ant can pick and choose when he wants to land. So I'm saying Julius sits on the bench. Great way to usher him out the door. You don't like sitting on the bench? Well, cash in your option and go elsewhere. Let him walk himself out. That's fine. It seems like a nice enough guy. He just doesn't fit the way that we want to play. Nas is the future. When you look at the good result of the trade, you paid Nas. You kept Nas, and Nas is, he's not as tall. Maybe he's not as tall as our good buddy Cat there, but I will take Nas all day long. He plays now. The way that he plays is unstoppable. That's part of what's unlocking Ant's game right now is because you can't just key on Ant. You have to watch out for Nas as well. So I'm saying, Julius, see you later. You're going to ride the pine and come in and be that guy. Pair him up with Conley. Let him and Conley work together as a 2-man show. Slow it down. When they need to calm the game down, that's what you need to do. Naughton, rev the engine, bud.
Well, I ain't going to do that. You've already revved mine, dude. I had a lot of time to sit and digest that, Mr. Steve. But I'm going to go out here and I'm going to say I agree with all of you, even you, Steve. Even you. And it really hits like my esteemed colleague, Razor Ramon. We call him that because he's sharp as a tack. He's edgy. I think the big thing that we totally missed on this whole thing is without Jules out there, Jaden actually he's carrying us a lot of time. And as Razor said, I don't know if it's spacing. I think it is. I would like to see Jules come back, and he can't start. Devo, man, he's got a great toe. A great toe sounds really awful. It doesn't sound like turf toe. A great toe injury. Let's ease him back in. That's where I agree with Mr. Steve. But I think the spacing that Brett and Razor have talked about, I think that just like Jaden's been like huge, and his aunt. You all can talk about him. We all know what he is, but I think we got to keep it status quo. Let's run these rookies. Let's run this rotation. And if you don't like it, as Mr. Steve said, get the fuck out, Jules. Michael.
Some interesting takes, gentlemen. I do agree. I think with some of the emergence, particularly of Jalen Clark and just some of the stuff that's happening with Nas in the starting lineup, I think that has freed up Jaden's offensive game. I don't think he has the defensive pressure on him that he did with some of the earlier season in the rotation. So I think, because let's be honest, I can remember like 2 months into the season, we were talking, I think the season preview, we talked about Jaden making that step from 13 points a game to like 15, 16. And it's just been the last month that we've seen it. So I think Jules being out has helped step up his game. Some of the defensive play over the last month has helped ease some of the defensive burden on Jaden. But in talking to you guys, one thing is becoming evidently clear. I don't know that there is a place for Julius Randle on this team beyond this season. And
he's out of here.
I mean, you think about that between his salary and just his fit with his team and just the future. I mean, basically at this juncture, if Jules has to go to save Nas and possibly Nikhil,
and get some picks.
Jules, and it's not that Randall's an unlikable guy or a bad teammate. I mean, he's got game. I mean, he's been a 3-4-time All-Star. I've seen him destroy the Timberwolves over the years. I think he hit it 60 against us a few years ago. I was optimistic, but I don't believe that they can retain some of these players in the future if they still have him on the books. So I think the writing is becoming on the wall. And to your guys' point, it might make it a lot easier. I mean, player option aside, I think if he chooses his option, he's going to get traded either way. But the more I think about it, and the more you guys talked about it on this podcast here, I mean, if he declines his option and walks, I mean, I think that's for sure going to get Nas paid, if not Nas and Nikhil. So to me, it's like I think either way, hopefully we can get run out of him, hopefully off the bench. But I think Julius Randle's days as a Timberwolves are numbered once the season ends.
I agree.
Yep.
One thing we all agree on right there. Even be naughty.
Yeah, I can't argue. I can't put my tinfoil hat on this one and just go against you just because that's my spirit. But yeah, I 100% agree.
But
and I love the emergence of Jaden as soon as he got hurt. That was huge to me, just watching that.
Yeah, it's been an interesting season. I really think the last month has been very interesting to see the dynamic kind of change from a lot of the things we were talking about. Now, hopefully the podcast change, because it seems like every other week we're talking about how good they looked the last week or bad. Hopefully there's a little more consistency going forward. Like I said, to me, at the start of this podcast, the big thing for me, just get a top 6 seed, avoid the play-in and any mishap that can happen there. Get a top 6 seed and let's roll the dice, because I can tell you this, I've seen them play OKC, Houston, LA, Denver enough this season to know that if we play any of them in the playoffs, I truly believe that this team is capable of beating them in a 7-game series.
And whether you're a 1 or a 6, you're playing someone badass either way. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So it's the West, dude.
Yeah, get in there. I still think the play-in puts you at a weird disadvantage. Not to mention, I mean, one bad game and your season could be over.
Yeah.
So to me, it's just like, just avoid the play and get a top 6 seed.
4
or 5. I don't think they're going to get anything beyond a 4 unless they really catch fire. But you know what?
Yep.
Like we said at the beginning, Dallas went to the NBA Finals last year as a 5 seed. They didn't have, home court advantage in any of their series. So,
and you win game 1 and you steal home court advantage. They did it to us.
Or like the Wolves went to the defending champion last year and stole home court in the first 2. Of course, they lost it by coming back and losing game 3 or 4. And that's one thing I love about the Timberwolves team of the last couple of years, even when they were playing Memphis and Denver the prior year. They didn't look shell-shocked on the road. They played very well last year on the road. 1-2 in Phoenix, and they won 4 straight road games to begin the playoff run last year. So,
and for our team this year, it doesn't really matter, right? Our team wins or loses, and they like to feed off the hometown crowd, but they're just as happy pissing off the other fan base, so it doesn't really for this team. They don't really, home court, not home court doesn't really seem to play into their psyche as much. It's just, they've been good and bad at home. They've been good and bad on the road. It's more about how, if they're, what Timberwolves team shows up on any given night. So, they're not like dominant at home and, crap on it, none of that. And for them, it's wherever you want to play is what you want to play. It all just depends on which version of these Wolves step out and which lineup gets rolled out. So I'm not, like you're saying, Mike, just getting the top 6 and I'm not worried about it from there.
Yeah, and what's interesting now that you mention that, because the NHL has been like that for years, where home ice doesn't really mean as much. You're starting to see kind of a change of the guard in the NBA with that, where obviously in a 7-game series it might make a difference, but a lot of these teams, they just want to get in and let the chips fall where they may. I mean, look at the Lakers, got to the conference finals a couple of years ago as the 7th seed. In a game, I mean, they might have been knocked off to the 8th seed, because if you remember, it was the game where Rudy got suspended. We took them into overtime, and then they never would have made that run had we won that game. I mean, that's why I don't want to touch the play-in, man. You never know what kind of crazy crap can happen.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, gentlemen, it's good to see you guys again. Been on a little bit of a hiatus, had a lot to talk about, so this show was a little extra long, but I believe the content was good, and can't wait for this last 2-month stretch run to see where this team takes us, as well as the rest of the NBA. A lot of cool and interesting stories. I know for those of you watching, I know you're going to be without Paul George's podcast now, because he's going to bring a championship to Philadelphia. In case you saw that today, he is dropping his podcast for the rest of the season. So, hey, any PG-13 fans that are looking for something to watch Hungry Like the Wolves. All right, gentlemen, it's been real. We will catch you next week. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.